This is How to Teach History, the Proclamation of 1763 debate. Here's your anticipatory set and do now. As a metaphor, imagine the most exciting day you get presents on. For example, it might be Christmas, so it could also be your birthday. First, tell me about what it feels like as a kid as Christmas gets closer and closer. And second, imagine that day arrives. You run downstairs to open your presents. The presents are all there, wrapped, nice and shiny and wrapped. Your parents then tell you, you can't open these now. Sorry. Explain how you feel and how you would react. Making the connection. Remember, the American colonists and the British fought a hard war against their French enemy in the French and Indian War. The first shots of the war began when George Washington attacked the French over land in the Ohio River Valley. As a side note, who started the French and Indian War will be a point of contention for your students later. If you're England, you say, hey, you started it. This whole war, this whole world war started when George Washington attacked a fort over the Ohio River Valley. You started it and we bailed you out. You're going to have the colonists on the other side saying, no, the fight between France and England has been going on for hundreds of years. We didn't start it. This was just a continuation of an ongoing struggle. All right, so the Americans expected that if they won the war, they would gain control of this new land. Much like presents on Christmas, they had to earn their gifts and waited a long time for them. Now the colonists, or the parents, England, told the colonists they could not go west of the Appalachian Mountains into the land. No presents for you. You might also want to mention, either now or in the notes later, as we're going to go into, that not only did England tell their children, so to speak, the colonists, that they can't have them, they actually allowed some French people, the people they just beat, to go into the land. So imagine, talk to the students about how they might feel if they were the colonists in that regard. All right, so this is a Proclamation of 1763 definition. I believe this is the only two notes of the entire lesson. All right, it was a British royal decree that the American colonists could not go west of the Appalachian Mountains until further notice. You might just want to put up a map and show them where the Appalachian Mountains, the students where the Appalachian Mountains are. And then specially licensed conquered ex-Frenchmen, who are now technically speaking British citizens from Canada, could go on the land for purposes, sorry, I have a little typo here, to trap fur, but no one else could go. Alright, so here's our activity. It's a role play debate. Divide the class up in half. One side plays England and the other side plays the American colonists. England's job is to explain why the Proclamation of 1763 was fair, and the colonists' job is to explain why it was unfair. Major arguments for both sides are explained in the next slide. I first ask the groups to brainstorm reasons why their side might be right, and then I coach each side on any points they overlooked before the debate, but I try not to expose them to the arguments of the other side. Then, when the debate's actually happening, each side must poke holes in the other side's arguments. I find that's where the critical thinking really comes in. As always, score participation by putting students' names on the board and checking them off each time they make a good point. I always encourage social studies teachers to grade the oral participation part in addition to the writing part. You really want to reward participation. All right, so let's do three quick arguments for each side. Obviously, you'll probably know these. You'll be able to do these on your own. These are just a quick summary. So the first reason why the Proclamation of 1763 was unfair in the colonist view is that, hey, we fought for the land we won, it should be ours. In other words, what was the point of all this fighting if when we win, we don't get the spoils of war? I don't get it. This is a very basic argument, and particularly middle and high school students really, it's kind of a killer argument. It's very simple, but it's very powerful. We started this, there was a war that started over the Ohio River Valley. We wanted to go west. The French wanted to go south. We hated the French. We won. We should get the land. And now you're telling me we can't go. So what were we fighting for? All right, the second reason, sorry, the other slide's out of order. The second reason why the Proclamation of 1763 was unfair is that it's a restriction on colonist movement, and that's an abuse of human rights. One of the most basic freedoms Englishmen should have is the freedom of movement. Who's England to say where we can and cannot move? We're not children here. If you've been following this, my lessons before, I often, as a metaphor, say that the colonists are children, but they're literally adults, the ones who want to move, the colonists who want to move west. Who's the crown to say where I can and cannot move? This is English land. We fought for it. We won. You can't tell me what to do. All right, and the last reason the Proclamation of 1763 was unfair from the colonist view is that you give the land to who? Let's get this straight. We fought a war against the French over land in the Ohio River Valley. They were our enemy. We won. They lost. Now the only people allowed onto that land are the French? When you win a war over something, shouldn't you get it and the loser lose it? Why are you allowing the French to go and conquer that to go and take the land? They're the losers. This is absurd. All right, so now let's do the other side real quickly. The Proclamation of 1763, why it was fair, England's view. Right, the first reason why the Proclamation of 1763 was fair from England's view is that England owns the land. The king is free to make decisions about who gets to go where, just like he did granting the colonists the right to come over to America and settle there in the first place. The Americans might not like it, but that's the king's prerogative. It is literally the king's land. Um, I don't care if you don't like going or not. It's fair because I said so. Second, the Proclamation of 1763 is for the colonists' protection. England did most of what we'd call the heavy lifting in the French and Indian War. Without England, the colonists would have been wiped off the continent. England supplied most of the financing for the war and, frankly, most of the soldiers. There's a substantial Native American population out west, and colonists tend to provoke Native Americans with their greed. Once England gets its financial house in order and can secure the area, they'll let the colonists go west, but they just simply can't guarantee the colonists' safety nor afford to pay for another war right now. Every time the colonists go west, they're very greedy. They establish these giant farms, these giant plantations, and they drive Native Americans out. The Native Americans attack back, and who do they come crying to? They come crying to Father England, the parents, and say, "Help me. We can't afford that right now, so you can't go." Something that the students should come up with on their own. But why did England let the French go but not the English? Well, the French are fur trapping. They don't tend to anger Native Americans as much. They don't need the land. They don't need to conquer land. They're just hunting for beaver fur. So they don't make enemies of Native Americans nearly as much as greedy English colonists. All right, and the final reason is it's pro-mercantilism. The English economy is ruined and England is in debt from the war that, frankly, the colonists started. We need English colonists to stay near the eastern seaboard so they may continue to trade with England. If England's economy collapses, England can no longer afford to protect the colonists from other world powers, and the colonists could be sitting ducks. All right, so those are the three arguments for and against the Proclamation of 1763. As always, here's a writing assignment. So first, explain what the Proclamation of 1763 was. Two, explain why England and the colonies had conflicting views about the Proclamation of 1763. And third, in your opinion, was the Proclamation of 1763 more fair or unfair, and why? Which arguments from England made the most sense and why? Which arguments from the colonists made the most sense and why? Which arguments from either side had holes in them, and what were those holes?